How many? How many? How many? How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, what did I get up to?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of How Many, the only podcast on the internet that counts. I am one of your hosts, Jesse Jackson. Joining us is a full crew tonight. We have Bob, Scott, Gary, Jr., and special guest star, David. Welcome to the show, David.
Thanks, gang. I appreciate you having me.
Hey, Mellow Man. As we record this, it's November 9th. The Cowboys have played another game, though we were just talking before we hit record. Yesterday's game was a better game, though still the same results.
I think it's important to kind of retrace our steps a little bit. So when we last did a Cowboys episode, the Cleveland game had just ended. Dak was still healthy. We had just lost to the Browns. We've had 5 games that have passed. The game immediately after was when Dak got hurt.
One of those you don't want to see twice. Look at the love for him.
I think you can tell by his face, he knows that it's not something small.
Had the horrific leg injury against the Giants, which was a win, which may be the last one we have all season. But like we've discussed, Arizona, Washington, Philadelphia, those were all horrendous efforts that looked like the team had quit up until this past week when they finally showed a little bit of life.
Mr. Grant, what's your thoughts?
We got LVE back. We got Sean Lee back, which able to get Jalen Smith off the field sometimes, which is always a good thing. The defense looked really good yesterday. They held a really good Steelers running game to 2.8 yards a carry. The pass defense was okay, especially given the fact that at times even Trayvon Diggs wasn't out there because he got dinged up in the game. Garrett Gilbert is the 4th Cowboy that has played quarterback for this team, and still the best quarterback in the NFC East. I was impressed. This is what you want from your team. You want them to go out there and, take the 7-0 Steelers to the brink and have a pass in the end zone that would have won it as time expired.
Garrett Gilbert. Will it be the play of his life? Steps up, throws to the end zone, and it's knocked down, and the Steelers once again in the game.
That's the kind of fight that you want, and with all of that, we still end up sitting right now picking 3rd in the draft.
I think the last time we talked about it, we said just show us something. Show us some effort.
Right.
And I do think that over the past couple of games, I felt like the effort has increased a little bit. At halftime, Chris called me and said, I don't want to talk, Dad. Let's just wait and see how the game plays out. It was competitive, and it was an enjoyable game, and you're right. This new Garrett, I don't know if he's the next coming of Romo, but at least he had something. Mr. Bob, your thoughts?
Is Dalton only signed for this year?
Yep. 1 year.
Yeah, it's a 1-year deal.
I would think that it would make sense for Gilbert to be the backup next year. Move forward with him as the backup. I like what we saw from him yesterday.
You're cutting bait on the Nooch?
Dude, the Nooch is a failed bit.
No, the Nooch is...
Don't be an idiot.
The Nooch this is...
Romo sat for 3 years,
yes.
dude.
No, I'll tell you what I did like yesterday was Randy Gregory. Randy Gregory.
More Randy Gregory.
They give it to Snell. The Cowboys crash in on him for no gain. It's Randy Gregory.
Gallimore also looked solid.
He was more than solid. He looked more like a 1st-round pick yesterday than he did a 3rd-round pick.
Defensively, it's really Jalen is continuing to be the weak link there.
His head's checked out, dude. Has been for 18 months.
Him and Xavier Woods, I think, are the worst
Woods is terrible.
players on the defense.
It's just another guy that they're giving all the slack in the world.
Who else is out there? Who could they play?
They drafted Reggie Robinson. Let him go play. What's he going to do? Run away from ball carriers? That's what Woods does. I've never seen the safeties back so much as that guy.
That's the frustrating thing is what they've got going for the rest of the season. They keep leaving guys like him and the anus inactive.
The anus?
Those guys need to get some PT, man.
I can see those guys. I think it'll definitely pick up by the end of the year, but I'm with you. I don't know why they don't get some snaps.
Yeah, at this point, you want to see everything that you got. Miller Man.
In this situation, I think I'd like to see more Pollard. I think every time he's on the field, he's dynamic.
They're going to run for it, but they're going to get it. Pollard out to about the 43, and nice block.
I don't know. I'm just liking what I see out of him more and
You're
more.
right. He has burst.
Yeah, he does.
Zeke has no more burst.
Is it the COVID Zeke, or is it just he just sucks?
He doesn't suck.
I mean,
There's no way he
got some
sucks.
Jalen.
Yeah, he's not. He doesn't suck, and this is a guy that's led the league in rushing. But the burst is gone, and the truth is, the metrics tell you that this happens to running backs at 26. He's 25.
And don't you think, Gary, he's kind of got a bit of the Jalen mental checkout?
I don't know. I saw him chase a dude all the way until the guy crossed the goal line the other day. I think he's battling. I just think that at the end of the day, and this is especially true for the bigger running backs. I mean, you grew up an Oilers fan with Earl Campbell. You know, these guys that are 230, 240, they run more violently, so they're taking a lot more abuse. They're carrying more body around, and they take more punishment. At 25, 26 years old, it starts catching up with them.
I do think this could be partly to that we are not sure what COVID does on your breathing and your endurance after the fact. And so I think that is a factor that we have to think about too.
I would agree with you if the guy had any 20-yard carries last year.
Okay, fair enough. Scott, how about you?
You know, I look at it and I wonder what a difference an offensive line makes.
Even just Zach Martin.
Yes.
Yeah.
You bring back Zach Martin, and they played much more cohesively. It amazes me, you know, because I'm thinking, one guy, and if they had the three others back, what would that line be right now? And what would our record be right now? I certainly don't think that Dak would be out if we had that offensive line, or I should say an offensive line. Our record would be way higher than that. Now, granted, that doesn't make up for the shattered defense that lets so many passes go right past them. I think that's the two big glaring problems. You know,
that's the difference in Zeke now, isn't it? I mean, for last year, he could do things even when there weren't holes, and now he's got to have the holes.
I saw Zeke break a tackle yesterday. There was a little catch he had over the middle, and the first guy that tried to tackle him just kind of bounced off him. I hate to say it, but I remember thinking, wow, Zeke broke a tackle.
You notice it. In other words, I think there are a couple of plays that I felt the same way. Like, oh, look, he might have had a little something there, which before you would have been not even noticed.
There was a few times when a gaping hole would show up and he'd run right into the offensive line as opposed to cutting and taking that hole. You know, like I think he would have a couple years ago.
I love the comment someone said, you don't need to tell them to tank, you just need them to keep playing. And
it's an organic tank.
Is it the coach or is it the players?
Players.
I got to think that it's 80% players and 20% coach. I don't think McCarthy's a bad coach.
He hasn't done anything to elevate them above the situation.
But then again, I got to say, though, is it him or is it the situation of the players and the COVID separation and lack of preparedness? Granted, I know other teams had to face the same things, but there's other teams that have a little bit more experience with each other.
And a lot of them were in the same system. There's only a few teams that changed coaches this offseason.
Gary, you brought up a really good point when we did this earlier in the season about if you wait all season to make a change, like in defensive coordinator, well, then you convince yourself on the off season, well, it wasn't fair, we got to get it. And then we're in the middle of the season of next year, and then, well, you can't do it, and all of a sudden we're stuck with 2 years with this defensive coordinator. What is your take on that?
I think Nolan has been a lot better the last few weeks, and part of that is he's got better players on the field. He doesn't have Poe out there leaving the middle of the defensive line wide open and everything else. But again, if I'm the defensive coordinator, I'd get that guy off the field. Hey, you want to fire me for telling Poe to go sit down or telling Jalen Smith to go sit down? Go ahead, because if I'm giving up 36 a game, you're firing me anyway. So I'll sit down whoever I want to sit down, and I'll deal with the consequences. Having said that, now that he's got better players on the field, they looked a lot better, and they looked good against a good offense. I don't know if I would have pulled the trigger on Nolan a couple of weeks ago, but I had him in my office for sure. If this had kept up, if we were in week 12, week 13, I definitely would have given George Edwards 3 or 4 weeks to show me that he could do something with this group.
All right. Any final thoughts? So then I want to know what everyone thinks. How many wins do we have left this season? Bob?
Final thoughts, I just think the defense is really what we've got to look at the rest of the year. If you continue to see them improve like they have, then keep Nolan around. Win-wise, I don't know. Maybe they win another 2 or 3 games, maybe. Right now, we've got, the number 3 pick? if the season ended today. You don't want to get down below like 5.
Optimistically, I think we have a legitimate chance at 3 of these games, but I wouldn't bet on the Cowboys to win any of them. And quite frankly, from just a logic standpoint, I would rather have the better pick than have bragging rights for a week.
Best case scenario is the rest of the season is just like yesterday. Competitive, close losses where they're playing hard, there's effort, they're improving.
From a personal standpoint, I would rather they just get blown out so I can use the rest of the second half time to do something productive than be left on the hook throughout the whole game just to get my heart crushed with optimism.
Let's take a quick consensus here and just go line by line about what's left and whether you think they're going to win or not. The Vikings. No.
Dalvin
You
Cook
say,
is
okay,
get like
laugh
300
again,
yards.
laugh again, and tell me why the Vikings are better. That's not a good football team.
Well,
Dalvin
they're
Cook
not-
is going to run over that
Dalvin
defensive
Cook-
line.
Hey, tell me that, but last week you would have told me that the Steelers were going to run over us, and they didn't. This defense is
James
better.
Conner ain't Dalvin Cook, though.
James Conner's not Dalvin Cook, but that Steelers offense is more versatile than that Minnesota offense. I'm just saying, 200 yards rushing, I don't think he's going to get to that. 150 yards doesn't always equal 40 points.
Well, next up after the Vikings would be Washington.
Winnable.
Yeah.
The Cowboys should not win any of these games, but I can tell you which ones I would argue that they have a decent shot at. They have a shot at Minnesota.
Yes.
All they have to do is stop Dalvin Cook, and I know that's a tall order, but it's really all they have to do. Washington, that's a bad football team, but they've got the best D-line maybe in the game, and that's our weak point.
The good thing about Washington is Kyle Allen just got hurt. He had an injury similar to Dak. So they have Alex Smith in there. And boy, anytime he takes a snap, you are just waiting for another horrific ending to his possible
we
career
could
ender.
blank them on defense and still lose 14-0 on 2 defensive touchdowns because their D-line is ferocious.
Very true. But I think the last time we lost to the Redskins, Kyle Allen had a lot to do with that. I think he made some plays that I don't know that Alex Smith will make.
What's up next, Milliman?
The Ravens.
That's lost.
It's an ass kicking.
Okay.
Followed by the number 1 pick, the Bengals.
That's
Winnable,
but that's another team that's going to give us trouble because passing games are multiple.
Yeah.
And we may be getting better against the run, but 3 wide receivers and a tight end and a running back, who knows?
And a mobile quarterback that can move that pocket.
The reality is, if they're not an NFC East team, I'm going to pick loss on every one of them.
After the Bengals, you have the 49ers, and I will say that I think that's a winnable game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on who's back.
Millerman, you got a point that there will be a game that the team has no business winning and they will win because that's just the
But with
NFL.
the Niners, you think about it, literally their best player is probably Bosa, and he's out.
Yeah.
Their second best player is probably Kittle, and he's probably out.
Yeah.
The next best players are probably Mostert, and he's out. If it's the Niners in name alone, you've got a shot at them. I mean, you had a shot at the Steelers yesterday.
After that, you're going to lead into the Eagles.
Another division game. It's a toss-up, but they're better than we are.
Yeah, I'd say it winnable, but I sure wouldn't bet on them.
I mean, if Carson Wentz is going to turn the ball over 4 times, we'd have a shot.
They have that great defensive line, though, just like Washington. They're going to
they're not as good as
same
Washington.
problems.
Yeah.
And then you'll end on the road with the Giants.
A winnable, but who knows? The Giants and the Cowboys are actually it's getting to be where they feel like they're similar. They were horrific, and now they're just bad.
That could be a tank bowl game, that last game of the season. They both may end up trying to lose that game to get better draft position because they could have very similar records by that point.
I don't know if that's in the Giants' mindset. It might be in Dallas's by then, but the Giants already had some tankathon, and I don't think they want any more of that. I think they want the wins if they can get them. Honestly, I've been trying to look at the draft. If we're in the top 5, we're in really, really, really good shape, and it's actually probably top 6. There's going to be 3 quarterbacks taken in the first 6. And then after those 3, you're probably looking at Rousseau, the defensive end from Miami, Surtain, the corner from Alabama, and then there's another corner that's not playing this year, Virginia Tech, Caleb Farley. Those guys, if we're in the top 6, we're definitely getting one of those 3, and I could not be happier.
All right. It's always fun talking Cowboys with you guys. Gary, if someone wants to reach you, how can they?
At @travel_cowboy on Twitter.
Hey, Bob, don't you have a couple podcasts you want to promote?
If a couple equals 10, then yes.
I have one that I ride shotgun with David Miller. It's called Plausible Deniability, and it's going to be co-hosted by none other than your favorite Millerman himself, David Miller. His dad was a DJ, so he's a natural on the mic.
Yeah, I was surprised that
Plausible
Millerman found time in his busy schedule recording presumed deniability.
Plausible deniability, sir. And it's very, very lucrative. That internet money is rolling in.
No, but Bob, how can they reach you?
At Lukewarm Tallboy.
And at Bend and Scoop.
Hopefully, you'll listen and enjoy all of the fun that we'll be having on the Bend and Scoop podcast.
And at ATJ.
And what we're doing here is we're having you be the host and me be the guest. We're flipping the entire podcast idea on its head. Stay tuned for more. We'll look for you soon. At Ben Scoop, at Assume TJ Pod, at Pause
At
Deny.
Campfire Songs.
Yeah.
How do you keep track of
Those
those?
songs
At ATM.
Smells.
And Scott, you are embracing the gram, as they say, right?
I'm embracing the gram, but I have dipped my toes back into the Twitter. See
Is
what
it
I'm-
because you have more free time now that you've been banned from Facebook for like a month?
It may be. It may be. Yeah. Scott _ Matula at the Twitter and GS Matula on the gram. So.
David?
At Blind Nello on Twitter.
Funny story.
Yeah.
Yeah, what is the story behind that, Millerman? Did you explain that the last time? By the way, we failed to acknowledge that this is the second time that Millerman has joined our beloved How Many podcast. The last time he was with us, he did Will Ferrell movies, Elton John, and 24-hour movies. And you've done too many, the episode where we just talked about how many episodes.
So is it sometimes David now?
So it is now sometimes David, and the episode that Millerman was on, the Will Ferrell episode, is our most popular and most downloaded episode. So we're expecting similar numbers.
All right. I can be found at Jesse Jackson DFW, and you can always hear me talking Doctor Who on Next Stop Everywhere, and Bruce Springsteen and music on Set Listing Bruce. Junior, how about you? And how can they reach the show?
You can reach me directly, Mexican _Junior. You can reach the show Twitter at How Many Podcasts. You can email us, although the only emails we get are from YouTube telling us to take all of our episodes down. howmanypodcasts@gmail.com. We have a Facebook page. Actually, the YouTube channel is up to 70 subscribers. Once we get to that magical 100 number, we'll be able to customize our URLs. The only sad part is I was kind of hoping that our subscribers would stay at 69, because that would be very nice.
Nice. Nice.
All right. There you go. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll be back in your feed shortly with more entertaining episodes. Or not. Bye.
Dallas Cowboys. We are the Cowboys.